Hello, here's why fan base. Welcome back. Happy New Year. It is a brand new year. Happy 2023. I am so excited to be back behind the mic and back in your ears for this week's episode, for this year's episode. This is this year's debut episode. And I'm really excited about it. This is a conversation that I've been dying to have for a very long time with a very cool person called Sam Valor. Some of you might know her already. She goes by Valor for Freedom on Instagram and has a pretty big Instagram presence. That's Valor_for_freedom on Instagram. And if you do not have your tinfoil hat fix for the day or the week or the new year, gear up because you're about to fucking get it. That's really what I'm all about, especially these days, especially after the year, the last 3.5 years and change that we've seen of just complete and utter chaos when it comes to our information dispersal and the way that we kind of consume rhetoric and information and data and so forth. So this one was really, really exciting for me. We kind of crunched it in last minute to squeeze this in while we could because people are busy these days. Okay, we all have things going on and we can't be expected to just drop everything for a podcast, even though this podcast is fucking awesome. But nevertheless, please sit back, relax, enjoy the show. Brought to you as always by Hex Beauty Lab. If you guys are into looking awesome and having healthy skin, and you're into single women who date super rich guys and use their money to start businesses, go check out Hex Beauty Lab and buy some of their stuff and use the code Here's Why at checkout. That's all caps HERESWHY for a great deal on all your skincare needs. That's it. Enjoy the show. Can't wait. Thank you. I'll definitely. It's funny. For the longest time, for some reason, my brain kept telling me that your name was Val because of Valor because like that was the name of your. And that's just where my brain always went to. And I've known for a while that your name was Sam because we've been messaging for quite some time. But that's just what my brain did. So this was a little bit. Like it was like short fuse, but not really short fuse because we've been talking about this for a long time. But then the holidays hit and the holidays are crazy and there was a pandemic going on. And also every week there seems to be something new happening that everyone needs to pay attention to and worry about. So
Yeah.
it's been a long time coming. I'm really excited to finally sit down with you and talk about some things. I don't know where to start though. What I guess in your mind is the most pressing topic that people should be talking about right now, but aren't?
Just generalize, the most pressing thing is the corruption. I mean, people want the elections to change, and that's not going to change until we fix the election integrity, and that's not going to change until we fix the corrupted people. They want to talk about like the child sex trafficking. Well, we need to talk about the corruption because we have so many politicians and really even the presidents and the Pope and everybody's in on that. So just corruption in general is probably the biggest thing that's plaguing our society overall.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's really scary that it's for me, the scary part came when like my paradigm sort of shattered because it was really easy getting into a camp. It was really easy being like, well, I'm on this team or that team. It's this color tie or that color tie, or it's left, right, up, down, black, white. It's like they divide us up into little camps, and it's really easy to just get into one of those and then go with whatever the camp is saying. Like you don't really have to think for yourself as long as your team does the heavy work for you and you can just agree with them, and I think more and more people are starting to sort of grow out of that. And that's kind of the scariest part because then you start to realize that, those camps aren't really real. And what is real is not actually talked about. Like you're not going to get real information on the news or in magazines or like it's not going to be propagated to you what you actually should be thinking about. Am I making sense?
Oh, you're absolutely making sense. And kind of when you talk about the teams, that's exactly it. We have the Democrats and the Republicans, and really it's the same wings of the bird, right? you're on this side or that side, but at the end of the day, it's really all the same. But it's a nice way to divide us, and then people are fighting amongst themselves, and then they're not really paying attention to what they're doing.
I read a quote that said, I don't like to take my moral wisdom from memes, but I think I did see this on a meme. And it said something to the effect of, we no longer have a two-party system. It's more like we have one party with two wings, and there are members of each wing in both parties. And at the end of the day, even the wings don't matter because somebody's like flying the bird or something. Like it's like we get wrapped up in our sociopolitics, and it's very easy to get trapped there as well when the larger picture, like what's going on outside of like the Eurocentric kind of American circle, is like that's real too, and that's what's really pulling the strings here. And it's just so massive and so scary. I was talking to someone earlier today. I don't have any kids, but I at some point I like to think of myself as someone who would be like a family man, but who the hell wants to like raise a kid? Like I don't know what kind of world my kids are going to be growing up in. It's just it's impossible to tell what's going to happen in the next 5 to 10 years.
It's kind of a good topic to bring up because I feel like they want people to think that way and they want people to feel that way. And I don't know how you feel religiously, but I mean, overall, God puts people on the earth at the times he does for the things that he needs. And we need good people raising up good humans because the shitty people, they're still going to have kids and they're still going to raise them to be shitty people. So if we don't have the good people also raising good people, like, I don't know if you've ever seen the movie Idiocracy, but that's kind of what it reminds me of. If all of the smart people and all of the people with good morals and ethics just stop having kids because they don't want to raise kids in a world like this, then our world's just going to go to shit. I think the harder part is finding like a good significant other.
Tell me about it. This slim pickings out here on the West Coast. No offense to any of these Cali people, but that's a whole different topic that we can get into maybe later or some other time. I think you're absolutely right. I consider myself rather Christian, which is ironic given my my past. I was kind of raised Catholic Christian, and then I like broke away from that in high school or something, and then during my college years I was just trying on all of the religions. I was like, I don't know who I am and I'll do whatever, like I was just putting on all the hats. And then slowly I sort of just trickled back to my Christian roots, and it sort of just happened on its own. And when I did that, I started meeting a lot of really cool people, and they said very similar things to what you just said. They were like, the political noise is always going to happen. It's always going to happen. They're always going to pull strings. They're always going to try to ruin your life. Change starts in your home with your family. Like it's about what you do, how you teach your kids, get married, have as many kids as possible. That's what everyone was telling me. And I was like,
yep.
Okay. I guess I'll do that,
Yeah, I just can't see it fixing itself any other way, really. That's what's needed.
Well, it's the difference between, I mean, you make a really good point. It's the difference between fighting and just kind of rolling over. Because if we decide, well, I guess I just wasn't meant to have kids, or kids are, I don't want to raise kids in this world, then, I mean, that's one less bloodline that they have to deal with, really. Like as morbid as it sounds, that's one less family that they're going to have to deal with as they try to keep taking over the world. And the nuclear family, they demonize it because it's like misogynistic or whatever, but a strong family is a force to be reckoned with. Like you can't really penetrate that barrier if someone has a solid relationship at home and a solid family unit. That's a devastating weapon to use against people who want to control your lives. And I think that's why they try to demonize those things.
The nuclear family, exactly what you said, is it's a force to be reckoned with, and they have done such a good job of tearing it apart. They took the women out of the homes. They're sexualizing, well, really not they're sexualizing, they're feminizing the men, and then they're sexualizing the children. They're tearing apart the nuclear home because, yeah, if you try to do that stuff with children and you didn't have strong parents, it's really easy to do that. But when there's not strong parents or parents that just aren't around, it's really easy to do that.
You know what kind of scares me? What another thing that kind of scares me is that when I'm 30 now. I just turned 30, and I I'm talking to people like from time to time. I'll be talking to people who do have kids, just to kind of like plant little seeds and try to pick up information or like parenting tips without actually asking for parenting tips. And the more I talk to a lot of these people, a little switch goes off in my head, and I'm like, oh, this person can't think. Like a lot of the people that are kind of floating around like raising children right now, the more that you talk to them, you realize that they like haven't had an original thought in 20 years. They've just
Mm-hmm.
been like kind of consuming rhetoric over and I'm guilty to pretend that I'm some, holier than thou, like I know everything or what. Like I'm guilty of consuming a lot of rage rhetoric and kind of in the past have had my own opinion swayed one way or another. But a lot of these people that even people who are in like high paying positions are just sort of drones. They're just kind of drones that they swallow the same rhetoric and then they repropagate it to their kids, which is the most dangerous thing. I mean, we should be teaching kids to sort of think for themselves as opposed to, blindly following one ideology that.
I feel like school is just like indoctrination. Like prior, like most kids were homeschooled. So kids, the wives would stay home with the kids and they would teach them and they taught them how to be self-sufficient, really. Of course they taught them how to read and other things like that, but a lot of it was teaching them how to be self-sufficient. And then we took the women out of the home, so the kids had to go to public school. And in public school, they don't teach you any of that stuff. All they
Yeah.
really stress to you is that you need to go to college and you need to get a lot of debt, basically. Go to college, take out a loan for a house and a car and all the other things, and then just keep working for the rest of their life. They don't teach people to think for themselves. It's not ever pushed to be an entrepreneur or, anything like that. They don't teach you how to start a business. They teach you just how to go to college and then get a job and then be a slave to the system forever.
Well, academia is like an industry now, and I think I actually saw a good reel on your page, if I'm not mistaken, and it was something about, was it Rockefeller who started
Yeah.
the Department of Education?
Yeah.
Yeah, so he basically bought enough or had enough influence to start the Department of Education and like gear it into something that just breeds consumers and workers. But before that, academia was something that very few people in society like went to. And that's why it was able to be free. Like very few people were going to school because we didn't need that many scientists. Like we had a few scientists who said like, this is how science works. And then the rest of us were farmers and we were cattle raisers and we took care of each other. And like we did all of the heavy lifting for society and then did the academic stuff. But now, there was such a big push for my entire life. There was a push that like, if you didn't go to college, then it was going to be impossible for you to survive, which is nothing could be further from the truth. Although now we're kind of moving into this weird new world where, like socially, if you can't prove that you're educated, quote unquote educated, then you're almost like lesser. Like people consider you like a lesser human being because you didn't pay 50 grand for a piece of paper with your name on it and put it on the wall. Then that makes you like you're not smart or something, which is why I appreciate people like Elon Musk. And I want to talk about this dude with you a lot, but I appreciate people like him because he says things like, you can go to college and still be an idiot. Like I know a lot of people with bachelor's degrees that are not smart. He says things like that, but then he does sketchy shit like behind the curtain, and I don't know enough about it, but I feel like you might, and I kind of wanted to poke your brain about that.
So I don't trust him at all. I think
Yes, I love this conversation already. I'm taking notes, by the way.
He's smart enough to know the key phrases and to know what to say to get people to follow him. And even the truthers, so many of them are deceived by him, where, okay, he bought Twitter, and then now he's releasing all these files, and people are like, wow, he's so great. And then they
Yeah.
forgot that he is also like actively talking about putting chips in people's brains. And
Yes.
if you have all this base on Twitter and you're getting all this information from people, demographic information, I super fucking apologize because I cannot talk today apparently.
No, that's okay.
But you're getting all this demographic information from them, and then just general information from them because people post everything on Twitter. That's just like a storage facility for him to get information on people.
Yeah.
And that's just like one example, but you have him, he said a quote, and I don't remember exactly, but basically he got rich because his family owns an emerald farm in Africa, right? And he made a comment about basically you just have to pretend to care and people will work a lot harder for you. And just that quote alone is like kind of damning in my opinion. And then people think he's so great and they're supporting him, and I think he's just fooling everyone. He's pulling a blind eye to everyone and people just can't see it.
It's really really possible. I don't know how likely it is, and I want to have faith in someone. I think everyone does, and I think that's why when people crop up, when people like Elon Musk crop up, or Andrew Tate, for everyone who like loved him for the 10 minutes that he was a thing, people want to have faith in someone. They want to know that there is someone who is powerful and has influence, who actually cares about the human race. You know what I mean? And I think that's what Elon Musk has kind of like depicted for people. But then you kind of dig a little bit deeper and you just find weird things. Like he has a weird relationship with Soros. I don't know what it is. I think he's on some board with Soros or some open society board or something as well. So is Tulsi Gabbard, who is another person that I loved because she was exposing a lot of stuff about a political party in America that I thought needed to be exposed. But not like she's on the same board. So I'm like, it's impossible to tell who's on the right side or like who's actually doing things that I think are going to be good for humanity, because at this point, I'm so tired. I'm so tired of teams and red hat, blue hat, and who said what or the rhetoric. I'm sick of it. And I just don't understand why there doesn't seem to be anyone out there who just has clean hands. You know what I mean?
Yeah. So the other thing about Elon is how can you really support someone who like openly supports worshiping Satan? And again, that goes into the biblical piece, but if you start really looking into things, almost everything ties back to spiritual warfare. And you can start going through the history and seeing how they used to worship these different deities and things like that. So if he's somebody who openly is into that, and clearly his mom is as well, no matter what he does, knowing that that's who he serves, I just don't know how anyone could get on board with supporting him.
Now, where did that come from though? Because I'm not discounting it. I don't know this information. Where he's a Satan worshiper?
Well, as a Christian, is there ever a time that you're probably going to go dress up as Satan and to pretend to be Satan?
No. No, there's not. But I want to be very careful because I don't want to sound like I'm making excuses or anything. But for people who like are not spiritual, they don't really understand the damage that something like that could do. They don't really understand how important that is. And I have actually a really close friend who'd do a much better job at explaining this than I would. But it's basically people who are not necessarily godless, but they're ignorant to spirituality, and they don't really understand the gravity that an action like that has. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it
Not
absolutely
to,
makes
and
sense.
it's not to like make it sound like it's okay or whatever. I'm just saying like it's there's a chance, there's a good chance that he may have just been like being goofy because it was Halloween. Although it was rather convenient that he chose the devil to dress up as, you know, of all things that he could have been.
His mom is openly like a Luciferian.
Okay.
Like she is openly. You can research that and see that. And I mean, that's his mom. That's
So and in fact, I'm writing that down. I'm probably going to take a lot of notes during this conversation. Okay. So I have to find out all about Elon's mom. This is like homework that I don't mind having because this is going to be a lot of fun. I mean, a lot of fun in like a scary way, I guess. So I guess we checked Elon off, and that sucks because I really liked Elon. And I mean, I don't really like electric cars. I don't like the idea of a total overhaul of the oil industry or the car industry. But he seemed to, up until recently, he seemed to have like a conscience. And I was like, oh, here's a dude with way too much money who's doing good things with it. That's great. And you just find out, I hate finding out that I can't have faith in people anymore and I can't feel good about someone anymore, you know? We covered Elon. I wrote down I was kind of in a panic because I know we've been trying to get this done for a while and we finally got some time to sit down. So I just wrote down a few things that I wanted to tackle. I just wanted to get your take on, and they are Balenciaga, Disney, sex trafficking, and Andrew Tate. And I don't want to take up too much of your time because I have a feeling that the two of us could probably talk forever and get 6 or 7 podcasts out of this conversation. But I don't want to, tie up the rest of your Monday. So do you want to maybe tackle one of those things or give me a
some
quick
of them
take?
kind of tie into each other.
Well, that's the thing. So and I'm sorry to cut you off, but the deeper I go down the rabbit hole, and this is why I have to take breaks on a regular basis, because the deeper I go, the more connections I find between one story that was way over here and another story that was way over here. And it seems that these two scenarios should have nothing to do with each other, but then you just start connecting all these dots, and the more dots I connect, the crazier I feel. And then you just start spiraling into madness, and then I just have to, every now and then I just have to take a step away from it, because you do start to feel like a crazy person after some time. You're like, this can't be real, like this is insane. But a lot of times, those things that people call conspiracy theories are not theoretical at all. Conspiracy, sure, but not so much theoretical. Like, they're very real things that just don't get talked about.
I really haven't come across a conspiracy that after looking into it wasn't true, unfortunately, because like you said, some of them are super far out there, but once you dig into them, you realize there's a lot of truth to them.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Balenciaga, have you come across any news about them lately? Are they still a thing?
So,
are they still in business? Because they're definitely still in business.
Yep, they're still in business. But their company has lost a ton of money lately, and they're actually looking to rebrand. Did you hear this update on it? You're going to love this. So they're looking to rebrand, and obviously you would think it would be pretty hard for them to find somebody to rebrand with, but Disney said that they were going to rebrand with them.
Terrific. That sounds great. Disney and Balenciaga taking over the world.
I know. And then Disney went as far as announcing that they're also going to do a whole series. It's going to be part of like their Spanish series, but they're going to do a whole series on Balenciaga, like the career and the success of them. And that's going to air on Disney Plus starting in 2024.
Oh my God. So I wonder if that would explain, I mean, that among other things probably explains Disney's recent push towards wokeness. And I want to find out, like, here's the thing: when something like that happens, there's always a silver lining in my head that just wants to have faith in humanity. And I'm like,
Hmm.
okay, maybe it was some super woke 23-year-old intern at Balenciaga that was just like, this will be great. And she just has no idea what or he has no idea what they're doing. Maybe this was just a mistake. And so I dig into it, and then you find out that like the photographer does spirit cooking fucking parties, and like
Yep.
the like one of the owners of Balenciaga has a company that makes like child sex dolls or something, and then
Yep.
you're just like, it's like my faith in humanity was already shattered, and now it's like worse.
Balenciaga had been doing things like that for quite a while, and that's why they had to delete their whole social media because people started going back through their social media and seeing that they had been doing it for a long time.
Within less than a day. I would say probably less than 12 hours, because I woke up and I saw the Balenciaga thing kind of all over Instagram, and then I went to their Instagram and there was nothing there. Like,
Yep.
absolutely nothing. No Twitter, no Instagram. There was nothing, like no trace of them online at all. And it's like, who has that kind of influence? Like that, it scares me. It scares me that they can still be in business. And like, where are the people? There's nobody who's like, there's no picket signs, there's no pink hats, there's no like hashtags. Nobody's doing anything about this. And it's we're like 2 or 3 weeks story broke, and it's just completely swept under the rug. No one's talking about it anymore. It was less than a month ago.
So, did you realize that the Save the Children hashtag on like Instagram and stuff is banned?
I didn't notice that. No.
So, yeah, if you hashtag that like on your post or your reel, like basically it kind of gets shadow banned because they ban that hashtag. Save the Children is literally saving the children. You think that everybody would be on board with that. It just kind of goes to show where the world is at right now. I mean, it's nice that the Balenciaga thing kind of went more viral. I know mainstream media didn't really pick it up, but overall it went more viral. It was good in the sense that it finally started waking people up to what they're doing, because it's not just Balenciaga. Like Vera Wang, I don't know if you're familiar with her. She makes like wedding dresses and stuff. She posted, I can't remember now if this was like 2 or maybe 3 years ago. She posted some pictures and it was the same type of thing. And she also put like hot dogs in there.
Ugh.
Yep.
Like,
And so there was
Pizzagate or whatever that was.
Yep. So she referenced all of that in her photo shoot. And, she was doing the same thing. It's just it didn't go viral like this did. So it isn't really something new. But now more people are seeing it because some people just didn't see the sexualization of children or really want to acknowledge that sex trafficking and like child abduction is such a huge problem.
Massive. It's a massive problem. And that's why, these topics were talked about kind of throughout modern history. And it was like as soon as the open border argument kind of cropped, very similar arguments, even back like before the two of us were even born. People were saying, well, this is going to be exploited to get drugs over here, to get children over here for sex trafficking, to get terrorists in here. And even back then, people were just like, oh, well, you're clearly just racist, or you're xenophobic, or you don't like people from other countries. And then you actually talk to the people from these border towns. And even in states like California, if you go like just on the outskirts of San Diego, you'll get the same rhetoric. You'll get the same like, yeah, maybe a strong border isn't the word. People who actually live in those areas, even in blue states that are pushing for a stronger border because it's just so dangerous. There was a documentary that came out recently that I'll remember the name of, and I'll try to send it to you. But there was a Russian dude that was stopped at the border, and they were asking him like, hey, why are you here? Like, this is usually like a South American thing. And he was like, well, it's easy to get in. I mean, I just had to get to Mexico and then I could just walk out. Like, I had to be here for some stuff that I'm doing in your country. So instead of jumping through all the hoops that I need to jump through, I just went to Mexico, and now I'm in now I'm in America, you know?
Yep.
Uh, so it's not just a matter of like, I mean, fentanyl is a huge problem. You know, overpopulation is a huge problem, but it's a big thing. It's a big problem that it just opens up the door for all kinds of variables, none of which are good for America, in my opinion.
No, the open borders, I mean, that's a whole nother topic. We're going to get off topic, but
Sweet. Do you want to touch on anything else before we wrap it up? Because again, I don't want to take up too much of your time.
so to tie back into Balenciaga and Disney, the connection with Disney and multiple people from their organization every single year being arrested for child sex trafficking is pretty damning, because I don't really know of another organization where repeatedly in that same organization people are being arrested for something like that. And then so you kind of have that piece going on, and then there's the whole piece of just them helping coordinate like the abduction of children. So it's been pretty rumored that there's different underground tunnels and stuff under Disney, and they coordinate abducting children and then selling them.
You know what's this is gonna sound really dumb, but Seth MacFarlane's shows like Family Guy and like American Dad and stuff like that, they kind of have similar scenes in them that like The Simpsons have. You know how people always they do the Simpsons memes? They're like 15 years ago they predicted the coronavirus or whatever. So Seth MacFarlane, I think it was like 3 or 4 times, he put in his shows uh Bruce Jenner transitioning. He
Yep.
put in who was the guy from House of Cards? You remember?
Mm-mm.
What was his name? Kevin Spacey. So he put in a joke about Kevin Spacey touching little boys, and he put in one more thing. Oh, I think he called out Harvey Weinstein like years ago, and it's not even really like a subliminal message thing. I think it's just that rich, powerful people hang out with each other. So they hear rumors and stuff, and it's kind of like a don't ask, don't tell thing. But
Yeah.
McFarlane is the type of dude he is to just kind of call people out on their bullshit, but he does it in like these sneaky ways, like putting jokes in his shows. I'll try to send you a couple links to those as well. But the reason I'm bringing this up is because on one of those shows, they make fun of Disney, and it's the same thing. They basically kind of allude to them trafficking children or kidnapping children, or like a mother will call the news and say my child went missing at Disney, and like it's this big sob story, but then like all the while Disney just took the kid.
Yeah. So I work in law enforcement. I'm not sure if you knew that about me or not.
You told me,
But
yeah.
okay, I thought I did. And we've obviously had sex trafficking cases too, and I've been a part of that world a little bit with my job. And people use Disney as a place to like buy and sell children, even if it's just for sexual pleasure for like the day. They'll like dress the girls up and bring them there, and it'll be like, whatever. The girls know that are stolen. Basically, if you get dressed up and you actually get attention that day, that means you're going to go to Disney World, and they're going to sell you for the day to somebody there.
Jesus Christ. That's
And
so terrifying.
it is. It's disgusting. But at some point, even Disney would have to notice that's going on in their parking lots and in their parks and, around, because I don't know if you've ever been to Disney World, but there's enough people around. Like there's literally people everywhere. So you would know that was going on. And clearly that's not something that they're ever trying to work on.
Yeah, that's gross.
It is.
And it's not the first thing. I mean, Disney obviously is like hundreds of thousands of people every day, but like even the Super Bowl, I remember hearing even when I was a kid, like the Super Bowl is one of the largest sex trafficking events on the planet, and that happens every single year. And it's been a problem every year since the first Super Bowl, I imagine, and there's not really any cracking down of that. And, just recently, I don't want to look for the story right now, but somebody in like the Virgin Islands, like an attorney general in the Virgin Islands, just tried to sue, I think, J.P. Morgan, and it had something to do with Epstein, and she got fired. Like the day that she tried to sue, she just miraculously was like, "You're fired," and she just lost her job. And nobody gives a fuck. That's what like this is the kind of stuff, like it happens right before our eyes. It happens right in front of us. And I'm just like, I feel like I'm screaming at the top of my lungs, like, you guys don't think this is weird at all. But the second you shine a light on it, somebody calls you crazy, or somebody calls you right wing, or somebody calls you something that groups you in with a bunch of people that you don't want to be associated with. And people just get so scared because they don't want to be embarrassed, and they don't want to be labeled like that, because, who would?
I think nothing's done about it because there's so many people in on it, and everybody who tries to speak out about it magically commits suicide.
Yeah.
You have like Chester Bennington. He was working on a project to expose the pedophilia ring, and then allegedly he committed suicide. And you have several people, and he's just one example, that have been working on similar projects, and that's always seems to be what happens in the end. So I think nothing's ever really said about it because the people in power that could do something about it, they're all in on it.
Yeah. Or they're either in on it or they know about it and they haven't said anything. So if story breaks, or if the guilty people get found out, they can like point the finger at like, oh, you knew about this too and you didn't do anything. There's always like a workaround or some way. They're like 25 steps ahead of us, which is why I think people like you are important. I think pages like yours are important, and I think it's really ballsy and remarkable of you to have such a strong voice and to be so ballsy about it, because it's a scary time to be alive, and it's certainly a scary time to think for yourself. So my hat's off to you, and I really appreciate you for what you do, but also for being on my podcast, because I'm really excited to have you on.
Appreciate that. I mean, honestly, I started the Instagram page just because people are so dumb. Really, I don't mean to put people down, but I try to talk to people about this in like my life and in my circle, and most people think I'm crazy. And I've put countless hours into researching things, and now I've made pretty good connections with people. And so I know things are true. I've seen things I wish I didn't see. And still people think it's just a conspiracy, and it's not. And so I really just started it to try to get the word out there, to try to wake some more people up, and honestly to connect with some people that were willing to search for the truth, and just like-minded people.
Well, I'm on Team Sam, so you got my vote, and I'll wrap a bow on this one and bid you adieu. Thank you so much for being on, and thank everyone for listening. And that's it, right?
Yeah. Thanks for having me.